I could have been one of Epstein's victims. I wanted to quickly give some context to the story I'm about to read. Jeffrey Epstein was an American financier from New York City. He was also a convicted sex offender who was abusing children potentially as young as 11 or 12. He started to be investigated in 2005 when a mother in Palm Beach, Florida, which is where this story takes place, reported that her daughter was being abused by him. He ended up pleading guilty and was convicted in 2008 of procuring a child for prostitution and of soliciting a prostitute. Florida police had identified 36 girls that he had allegedly abused. After serving 13 months, he was arrested again in 2019 on federal charges for the sex trafficking of minors in Florida and New York. He died later that year in his jail cell after supposedly committing suicide, but was more likely murdered and covered up. So now that you're caught up with the background, here's the story. I was watching the Jeffrey Epstein documentary on Netflix last night, and I'm spooked. I pretty much had a mini panic attack with all these memories flooding back. So as I was lying in bed watching, a girl's face flashed across the screen, and I recognized one of his victims as one of my really good childhood friends. Here's my story. I've lived in South Florida almost my entire life with my crazy, controlling parents that wouldn't let me do anything as a kid. No phone calls to friends, and no extracurricular activities unless it was academic. I couldn't even have friends over, and you could forget about me going over to anybody's house. Plus, my dad worked in my elementary school, so I always had to be on my best behavior. So, when I finally went to middle school, I was so pumped. Finally, some type of freedom. My personality started to shine, and I was making friends easily. Fast forward a year in, and it's now 2004. I'd become really good friends with these two girls. We can call them Heather and Sharon. They were both pretty, popular, and friendly. What fascinated me most was that Heather was the only girl I knew in middle school that was able to sleep over at a boy's house. That was something so foreign to me since my parents told me I couldn't even go on a date with a boy until after I graduated. So I automatically thought she was the coolest girl I'd ever met. Throughout our friendship, we were known as the tripod. We all had the same classes and lunch periods, so we got pretty close. Over time, Heather would always ask me to hang out with her and Sharon, either after school or on the weekends. But with my parents, there was no way in hell that would happen. I did attempt to ask for permission a couple times, with no success, not even a maybe. I was so bummed because I always felt left out having Heather and Sharon hang out without me, something I would eventually become grateful for. One day, while sitting out in the courtyard for lunch, Heather pulled me aside and asked what I thought about skipping school for a day. I instantly freaked out and thought about that automated message when the school calls home to let your parents know that you weren't at school. If my parents ever got that, I'd be toast. So I shut that idea down right away and kind of laughed it off because there was no way I'd be able to pull that off. But she wouldn't stop asking, so eventually she'd convinced me and we were able to start planning. It took us about a week every day during lunch trying to figure out how to pull this off. The thrill of it had me so excited as I'd never done anything like this. The plan was to have my mom drop me off at school as usual and have the girls there waiting for me, and we would simply just walk off to the gas station that's near the school and have one of Heather's friends pick us up. I can't remember how I planned on dodging the school call, but whatever. Heather kept making it a point several times to remind me that I need to wear something that would give me an innocent look. I blew this off because I was 13 years old. I already looked innocent enough. So the plan went smoothly, and we're walking to the gas station. But as we're walking, Heather's cell phone is blowing up, like constant phone calls and texts coming through, and each one she answers with, "Just meet us at the gas station like we usually do." At this point, I'm confused because I thought it was just supposed to be the tripod hanging out for the day. As we got closer to the gas station, I can see a group of 7 other girls standing there, and they're all around the same age, 12 to 14 years old. Some girls I've seen around school, others I don't recognize, but they all perk up when they see Heather walk up. All of a sudden, Heather yells, "Who's ready to make some money?" And almost all the girls raise their hands and start cheering. I grabbed Sharon and asked her what was going on. What's she talking about? The look that Sharon gave me is one I'll never forget. It was like she was saying, "Get out while you can." It just made me very uncomfortable. It was just weird, a big group of young girls who should be in school just hanging out at a gas station. So as we're just standing there, two black Lincoln Town cars pull up and make a sudden stop right in front of us. Heather starts numbering off the girls and tells the first group to get in the first car, and as they do, the car speeds away. The other one slowly rolls the window down, and I see this older man with sunglasses on, just sitting there smiling. He asks if we're ready to go to the mansion, which excites the two other girls standing behind me. He opens the door, and they both jump in, followed by Sharon. Heather is standing right next to me and nudges me to go on. But as she does, I start going off on her, asking her what the hell is going on, where are we going, who is this man, and why didn't she mention any of this in her plans? She's looking around, almost annoyed with me, and says, out of all the girls I bring, you're the only one that's giving me a problem. I thought you would want to get out and finally have some fun. And with your body, you can make a killing. At the time, I was so naive I didn't know exactly what she meant, but by the tone of her voice and how pressured she was making me feel, I ended up backing out and running back to school. As embarrassed as I felt for bailing on my friends, I feared my mom and her belt a whole lot more. Plus, going off in a car with someone I'd never met screamed stranger danger. I'm so grateful that my parents put that fear in me, otherwise I don't know that I would have made that smart decision. After that, I barely hung out with Heather again. She tried a few more times, but I just got bad vibes from her and cut her off. But I always saw her randomly walk out of school, towards the gas station, always with a group of girls. Sharon, on the other hand, started to spiral into depression slowly. She would only hang out with Heather and would cling on to her kind of like a lost puppy. I noticed she would miss school more and more frequently, until one day she just stopped coming altogether. Years later, I found out she had committed suicide. After watching the documentary, I'm convinced she was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and Heather was one of his recruiters. I reached out to the only childhood friend I had stayed in contact with, and she confirmed that it was in fact my friend whom we went to middle school with in that documentary. Since this morning, I've contacted a friend who's in law enforcement to see if I could speak with someone about what I know. Even with the little information I have, I could help out in some way. As for Sharon, I never met anyone in her family or had any contact information, as I was on major lockdown back then, and this was 16 years ago. I'm still trying to track them down to see if they know anything about this, as it could explain why she might have taken her life. I'll keep you updated. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy listening to true crime or the creepiest stories from the internet, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and make sure to comment down below. I'll leave the link to the original Reddit post where I found this story in the description box down below. If you have a story you'd like for me to read, I'll leave my email in the description box down below. Send it to me there. But until next time, good night.